Hello guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to develop a simple uh, OVP application in Fiori, and basically I'm going to share my understanding of how to develop this OVP application. So the process is simple as we just develop our UEFI application. So when we are developing our UEFI application, what we are basically going to do is, in order to create the component, there is a standard component class called sap.ui.co.ui component. So by inheriting from that, we create our own component controller, and from there we develop our application. So in a similar way, here in order to develop this OVP application, SAP has provided with a standard component called sap.ovp.app, which is a standard component which takes the responsibility of creating the codes. So all we have to do is that we have to create a custom component by inheriting from this particular component class, and we have to provide the necessary information to this, and that information is provided in the form of this manifest file. So all we are going to do is we are going to take this standard component for this OVP, and by inheriting from this we are going to create our own custom component. Let's say for example I'm going to create a custom component called scm underscore OVP. So I create a custom component by inheriting from this standard component class, and in this custom component class I'm going to provide a couple of things. One is that I'm going to override this manifest.json file, where I'm going to override the information on what are the services it has to use and what are the annotation file it has to use in order to display the information, or what are the codes that I wanted to display. So basically in the manifest.json file, there would be three different information that I would be specifying. One is that I would be specifying the data sources section, where in the data sources, I'm going to specify what is the service that I wanted to use, and what are the annotation that I wanted to use in order to display the data from that particular service. And then apart from that, I'm also going to specify my codes, where I'm going to display, where I'm going to specify that um, what are the different codes that I wanted to display and what type of code it should be, and so on. So basically these are the three things which I'm going to specify in this manifest.json file. So in the data sources, I'll be specifying the service URL along with what are the annotation files that I have to use. And then in the code section, we are going to configure the different types of code that I wanted to be displayed as a part of this application. So by overwriting this information in the manifest.json file, the standard component is going to pick this information, and by reading this information that we have provided, it is going to generate the code for us in the UI. So technically we are not creating the UI. The standard component is creating it based upon the information that we are going to provide over here. Then the other thing that I'm going to do as a part of this application is that I'll be creating this service model folder, where I'm going to specify what are the services that I wanted to use and what are the annotation that I'm going to create. So annotation in the sense, basically we are going to create the annotation file to define how the UI is to be displayed. So SAP has given us with several set of annotation, particularly for this OVP, using which we can tell the system that this is how this particular data from the service has to be displayed. So here in the service model, basically what we are going to do is that we are going to create the annotation file, and these are the annotation files that I'm going to link over here to the data sources, where I'm going to link it as, for this particular service, you use this annotation file to display the information from this service. So that relationship we are going to create it over here in the data sources. So by providing this information, the standard component develops the code for us. So what we will do is we will go to this web IDE, and we will see how to develop this simple OVP application. So to create a new application project, I'm going to right click on my workspace, say new, and create a project from template. So here I'm going to choose this overview page application, and I'm going to click on next. And then I'm going to provide the name for my application. Let's say for example, I'm going to provide the name as scm underscore OVP, and I click on next. So here from the service catalog, I'm going to choose the OData services which I wanted to consume as a part of this application. So the destination has already been created. So I'm going to choose this destination MG4 OData, from which I'm going to consume my service. And here I'm also going to specify what is the service that I wanted to consume. So basically I'm going to provide the technical service name, where I'm going to say it as mm underscore prc underscore ovp is the service which I wanted to consume. So I choose that and I click on next. Now in this step, the system loads the annotations that are available for this particular service. So what I will do is that I will skip the spot and I'm not going to load any annotations here. So I'll simply click on next. Then I'm just going to provide the namespace for in which I wanted to create the custom component. So like I said, this will be my standard component from which we are going to create our custom component. So here I'm basically going to provide the name in which I wanted the custom component to be generated. So I will simply give it as scm underscore ovp to be the name of the component. And then in order to create the selection criteria, here the system asks for the entity type for the filter. So if you look at this help, it only displays you this list of entities that are available. So what you can probably do is you can just choose your entity which you want it to be used as a filter, and then you can provide the title and description and you can click on finish. So I'm going to provide as scm ovp. So I'm just giving this description and I click on finish. So now an application project will be created for me, and if you look at the content of this, what we would have done is that we would have created our component by inheriting from the standard component, and we will be having our manifest.json file. So expanding this application, here you can basically see this component.js file, where as I said, you'll be having this standard component file. By inheriting from the standard component file, we are creating our own component, and to that component we are feeding this manifest.json file. So that manifest.json file is something that is available in the same directory as our uh, component. So before I go and do any further modification, there are a couple of settings that I wanted to do, because whenever we have chosen our service from the service catalog, what the um, IDE does is it is going to provide you an access path to that particular service alone. But here, apart from that particular service, we are also having the necessity to read the other service as well. So what I will do is I will extend this path to access all these OData services. So I'm just modifying this path, and the standard OVP component would also need the access to other UEFI application as well. So I'm also going to provide an access to this other UEFI application. So I will specify the directory to that. What are the directory that could be accessed? So I'm going to open up this path for UEFI application, which is sap/bc slash UI5 underscore UI5. Okay, so now I have provided access to all the OData services as well as the path to all the UEFI application as well, whichever if my application wanted to consume. So that is what I have done here in this new app JSON. Then what we will do is, if you look at this manifest.json file, here you will be finding this section called as a data source, where we are going to provide what are the services that we wanted to consume. So say for example, here I have provided the data source for this mm underscore prc underscore ovp, where this is consuming the data from this particular service. So we have only provided the service path here, and then the system would have also created this sap.ovp, where we are going to configure our chords. So before that, here I will also extend this global filter entity type to point to this type rather than the entity itself. I'll add this extension type to this. So this is an entity type based upon which I wanted the filter to be created. So here we have the data source, and here we have the chords information. So first we will create our data source that are necessary. So we have already have this data source which is going to consume the data from this particular service. But we also need the annotation files which tell the system that this is how the data from this particular service is going to be displayed. So I see this local service folder which has already been generated for this. So inside that particular folder, you can also see this metadata loaded for this service. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the annotation files that are required for me. So to create this annotation file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the annotation file from the service itself. So what I will do is I'll just right click on this and I'm going to say import and import annotation files. So here I'm going to choose the service catalog and I will choose the service. So I have selected my service and here are the list of annotation files that are available as a part of this service. So what I will do is I'm just going to select this annotation file and I'm going to choose import. So this will import this annotation file of this particular service. So what I will do is I'm just going to rename this annotation file to global filters, and in this annotation file I'm only going to have the annotations that are required for the purpose of developing the filters. So what I will do is that here in the service you could see that there is this annotation which has been developed based upon this entity type, procurement small filter type. What are the um, UI fields that are to be available? So apart from that, whatever the annotations that are available, I'm just going to delete them. So you can also choose to have all your annotations within the same file as well. So just to segregate the different parts of the application, I'm just creating a separate annotation file for each and everything. So this will be the annotation file which is going to contain the global filters for me, and I'm going to create one more annotation file where I'm actually going to display the content. So I'm going to create one more annotation file here, which again I will import from the same service. So I choose this annotation file and I choose import, and you can see the annotation files created over here. And I'm going to rename this annotation files to, so I'm going to develop this code for overdue purchase order item. So I'm going to say overdue PO and I rename this. Then I'm also going to so so I will also delete all the annotations which are generated as a part of this file from this service. So I'm going to build this annotations from this annotation modeler. So now I will move on to this annotation modeler. So basically what I wanted is this template, where this template indicates that this is the key part where this is the service from where I have to load the list of entities. So with that information, I'm going to use the different entities which are available here and I'm going to do the annotation. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to do. One is that I wanted to create a filtering condition. Then I wanted to create the result set, which I'm going to display as a list. So in order to create this filtering condition, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to choose this filter entity which is available for this. So the filter entities will be available with this name parameters. So here you can see this, for this overdue PO you find an entity called parameters. Likewise for purchase order value you find this purchase order value parameters. So you see this purchase requisition type analysis parameters. So whenever there is an entity call that we are going to make in order to retrieve the information, and if that entity requires some filters to be passed, so those filters are to be passed using these parameters. So that's the way the service has been built, where it also has an entity. For example, for this overdue PO you find a result as well as you find the parameters. So you basically pass the parameters here and you use this result entity to display the results. So I'm going to choose this one and I'm going to click on annotate, and here I'm going to add this annotation where the system is going to choose me what type of annotation that I wanted to do. So basically I wanted to create a selection criteria. So I'm going to choose this annotation UI dot selection variant and I'm going to click on OK. So there are a couple of options that I can choose in creating the selection variant. One is either I can choose this parameter or I can use this select option. So I'm going to make use of this parameters. So before I do that, I can also add a qualifier over here using which I will later on identify these annotations. For example, let's name this as overdue pivot underscore selection, and I'm going to add a parameter over here, and in the parameter I'm going to specify that I wanted to create a UI parameter type, and in that UI parameter I'm going to configure as what is the value. So I wanted to pass this evaluation time frame days as with value 365. Likewise, I'm going to add one more annotation file over here, one more property over here in this selection annotation, where I'm going to display this display currency as euro. So I have created this selection variant annotation with these two parameters. And if you go to the code editor, now you could see this annotation section which has been defined here, where this is of type selection variant, and the annotation has been generated for two parameters with by setting this default value, and the qualifier has been specified over here. So based upon this qualifier, I will be able to identify what is the selection criteria that I wanted to use. Then what I will do is I'm also going to create the result variant as well. So I will go back to this annotation modeler, and I'm going to choose this entity set overdue pivot results, which I'm going to use for the purpose of displaying this result set, and I'm going to click on annotate. And here I'm going to add this annotation, and this time I'm going to display it in the form of list. So I'm going to choose this UI line item. So the more information about this different UI annotation that are available can be found in this SAP UI demo kit, where in the developer guide you'll be able to find this node develop apps with SAP Fiori elements, and here you'll be finding this section annotations used in overview page. So here you basically find the information on the different annotations that are displayed over there, and what are the different properties that are available for each and every one of those annotations. So that information can be read from here. And here I'm going to display it in the form of list, for which I'm going to choose this UI.line item, and I'm going to click on OK. So I have created this UI annotation, and here I'm going to give this qualifier as overdue pivot underscore results. So this is the name that I will be using in order to display the content using this list annotation. And I will click on this add button to tell what is the data field that I wanted to add. So here I'm just going to do a simple list where I'm only going to display the title information. So I'm just going to choose this data field where I'm just going to specify the PO number alone, and I click on OK. So in this data field, I'm going to specify that I wanted this field to be displayed with the text PO number, and I'm going to provide that it should take the value from this purchase order field. So I specify that and I click on save. So now if you go to the code editor, in the same file you can also see one more set of annotation that has been generated here, where this time this annotation points to this result entity set, and this has this qualifier overdue PO. So now I have this couple of annotation files that has been generated. One is for global filters and another one is for this overdue PO. Now whatever the modification that I'm going to do inside this mm underscore prc underscore ovp, this will be automatically listed in this manifest.json file as well. So here if you see in this mm underscore prc underscore ovp, you can see that there are two annotations that are available now. One is going to be my global filters, and another one is going to be my overdue PO annotations, where here I have the filtering condition and here I have this selection criteria as well as this result entity. And here you can also see that this annotation file is being loaded from this particular location, and this annotation file is being loaded from this particular location. So now that I have this annotation file ready, now we will go ahead and we will configure our code. So I'm going to right click on this project and I'm going to say new, and I'm going to create this code, where I'm going to create this code using this existing data source. I'm going to choose this data source and I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to create this list annotation which I have modeled, and here I'm also going to specify the entity from which I wanted to read the information. So I wanted to read it from this overdue PO result set. I'm going to give it as overdue PO result, and here I will add this OData select, and I will also specify the list type. So this information about the chord properties that you can find in this demo kit, in this section, in this node configuring chords, you'll be able to find the different types of chord. For example, if it is a list chord, you can basically see what this properties refers to. So what are the things that are available in this condensed list type? What are the things that are available in the extended list type? So this information you can find it over here. So I'm basically going to uh, specify this, and here in the qualifier I'm going to add this overview PO results. So this is the name of the annotation that we, this is the name of the qualifier that we are given for the result set, result annotation. So I just mapped it over here, and I click on next and finish. So I'll do that step again. So most of the time I have seen that whenever this manifest.json file is open, the chords are not being generated over here. So it's better we close it and we create it. So here from this annotation modeler, I'm going to choose this as the result. So where I'm going to say that this is the result set that I wanted to use. So I have specified the result set over here, and now I will execute this application. Okay, so now if you see here, the last batch call that has been made, the last batch call would have been made for the C underscore overdue PO results. But instead, I wanted it to make a call to the entity which has this parameters, and by passing that parameters, I'm going to retrieve this information. So basically, I have to specify the selection variant where I could read this data from. So if you go back to this, here you can find this selection variant. So we have created our selection variant here, which has been already done. And in the list, along with this selection annotation path, sorry, so if you see here, we have this annotation path which will give you where to get the data from. So along with this, we can also make use of this property called selection annotation path, where I'm going to tell the system that this is where you have to get the data from. So I'm going to specify the path here, whereas this path I'm going to specify it as, so here whatever is the selection annotation path which you have specified with the qualifier, we can provide this annotation path. So you can basically specify that. So in this way, we are telling the code that when you're going to load this particular code, you use this selection annotation path, and you use this annotation path to retrieve the data. So I haven't quite figured it out yet as how to retrieve the data based upon this custom selection annotation that we have created. So instead, what I will do is I will load the annotation from the service itself. So what I'm going to do is the manifest.json file, I'm going to add one more annotation here, and I'm going to call this annotation as server annotation, and I'm going to specify the path for the server annotation as. So I'm going to load it directly from the server. So there is a catalog service which has this entity called annotation, to which you're going to pass the technical service name, and that is going to give you the annotations that are available for that. So I will just choose that part. So I have copied this path where from the catalog service, from the annotations entity set, we are going to pass the technical name of our service, and we are going to get that annotation file. So this annotation file, I'm going to load it over here as this server annotation. So now if I execute this application, here in the network section, you could see that the annotation file that I have provided, like global filters as well as this overdue PO, has been loaded. But here still I could not figure it out as how to direct the path based upon this custom annotation. So I'm going to use this data from the server annotation. So now that I have specified this server annotation thing, you could see that the server annotation has made a call over here. So it has, so the catalog service service has been executed for my service prc underscore ovp, and the annotation file would have been loaded over here. So I'm going to copy this. So this is written in the form of XML. So I'll just go to this XML here. I will convert it to JSON. So if you see here, that catalog service is returning this information where it gives me the information on the list of annotations that are available. So here for this C underscore overdue PO results, you can see that the annotation file that are being provided, the annotation file that are provided by the service, where you can see that this is the annotation for this data point, and this is the annotation which is available as a selection variant. So the annotation file for the selection variant is already available. So I'm just going to choose this qualifier as the selection variant is already available, and I'm going to use this selection path now. So in the qualifier name, I will replace with the selection variant path from the service, and I will reload my application. So now if you look at this batch call, you can see that system has read from this C underscore overdue PO by passing this parameters, and it has retrieved this information. So this is basically how we build our OVP application, and the more information about this could be found in this particular node. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day.